Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves. Today on the show, the Timberwolves' two best players so far this season have been Julius Randle and Jaden McDaniels. What has gotten into each of those guys? What has changed the most from last season to this season? We're going to break it down next.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network. That's right. Locked On is now the number one sports podcast network. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Happy Hump Day. The Timberwolves have today and tomorrow off. Of course, they had Tuesday off too. So 3 straight off days before they're back in action Friday night in NBA Cup play against the Sacramento Kings back at Target Center. Today, though, I want to key in on the Timberwolves' two best players this year, just as we all thought. It's Julius Randle and it's Jaden McDaniels. Yes, Ant has missed 4 games, and that's certainly part of it, but I really want to key in on what's changed the most for both Randle and McDaniels this year through 11 games. Just a little over 10% of the season. Yes, a painfully small sample size, but it's what we have to go off of. We're a month in now. What's different this year versus last year and really over the course of their respective careers for both Randle and McDaniels? We'll focus on that for much of the show today. We'll get into some of the team stuff too, like overall, what's most different for Minnesota as a team than what it was last year, again, through the first 11 games of the season. So a lot to dig in today to give us some context for where the Wolves sit about a month into the regular season. A big thank you off the top for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. All right. Let's start with Julius Randle, because I think Julius has, the best way to say it is Julius Randle has been a revelation to this point in the season. We talked a little bit about it on the post-game pods on both Monday and Tuesday following the two West Coast-ish wins over Sacramento and then Utah, because Randle's, he's got 2 triple-doubles in his last 5 games. He's got this, the 6+ rebound assist and 6+ assist and rebound games that he's been having recently. It's incredible stuff. If we take the overall body of work for the season, like, again, caveats apply. I get it. We're 11 games in, but as I said a minute ago, this is what we have to go off of. So, like, right now, Julius Randle is averaging more points per game than he ever has in any individual season in his career. He's averaging more assists per game than any other season in his career. He's averaging more steals per game than any other season in his career. He's actually averaging the least amount of turnovers since his last season with the Lakers, when he was basically a center and didn't really handle the ball much, wasn't initiating offense at all. He wasn't being treated in that way or allowed to do those things. So, like basically a decade, I guess, 8 seasons. Right now, it's the second best 3-point percentage he's ever had and his best in 5 years, which was his first All-Star season, his second year with the Knicks. I don't like measuring things by per game numbers, but that I think gives a little bit of context. If we look at the rate-based stats, it's even more dramatic. Julius Randle by far has the best assist rate of his career, 28.9%. Only once in his career has he broken over 25% assist rate, and that was that first All-Star season 5 years ago with the Knicks. Almost 29% assist rate for Julius Randle. That's a big number. And we'll talk about the context. Well, actually, we can mention it now. I'll get back to some of the team stuff in a little bit. But right now, Julius Randle is number 1 on the Timberwolves in assist rate among guys that play rotation minutes. I'm taking Joe Ingles out of this. Number 1 in assist rate. Last season, Julius Randle was 3rd among rotation players. Behind, well, I guess he was really 2nd. Rob Dillingham played in 49 games. He wasn't a regular rotation player. But if you want to include Dillingham, Conley, and then Julius Randle in assist rate, 22.5%. He's 28.9% right now. He's ahead of Rob Dillingham. He's ahead of Mike Conley. He's ahead of Bones Highland. He's ahead of Ant. He's number 1 on the team in assist rate. But again, the context of Julius's own career, his best assist rate, it's his lowest turnover rate since his second Knicks All-Star season, and the second lowest of his entire career. All this with a usage rate that's back in line to where it was with the Knicks. Last year, it took a big dip. Last year, it was his lowest usage rate he's had since his third season in the league. Usage rate, if you're not familiar, is exactly what it sounds like. How many of your team's possessions are you using up? Which is essentially what percentage of your team's possessions when you're on the floor and with you taking a shot, getting to the free throw line, or turning the ball over. And Julius's number is up significantly from last year, and it's in line with where he was with the Knicks. All that, and the turnover rate itself is way down to the second lowest of his career. And the assist rate is the best of his career. So the best assist rate, the second lowest turnover rate, and a usage rate in line with where it was when he was an all-star 3 times with the Knicks. The turnover, or excuse me, the rebound rate is lower, and that's an issue, a team-wide issue. In fact, right now, it's actually Julius Randle's lowest rebound rate of his career, tied with last year. He just hasn't rebounded the basketball as much with the Wolves. Part of that is the offensive rebound rate is way lower. Why is that? Well, he's on the perimeter a little bit more. He's initiating a bit more. He's not a center. He's not playing a true power forward role where he's down under the basket like he may have been 5-6 years ago with the Knicks or even the Pelicans or the Lakers. It's a bit of a different role. That said, it's worth noting, second lowest offensive rebound rate of his career, second lowest defensive rebound rate of his career, and the lowest total rebound rate of his career, tied for the lowest of his career. Worth noting. But everything else is up. The assist, turnover, and usage rates being where they are is phenomenal. On top of that, the steal rate is the best of his career, by far. Now, that's certainly a small sample size theater right there. I mean, it's nearly a percentage point higher than his best, or I guess a little more than, 0.6% better than his best previous steal rate. That probably comes back down to earth. I think that's even more likely than the rest of it. But overall, all of the above is awesome. Oh, and by the way, the free throw rate is higher than it ever was with the Knicks. The free throw rate is back to where it was with the Pelicans and Lakers early in his career when he was closer to the basket. And I think that's notable. And by the way, the average distance on a shot isn't dramatically different than what we've seen in recent years with the Knicks and last year with the Wolves either for Julius. So it's not like he's completely changed his shot profile, but he's getting to the line more often than he has in the last 7 years. The 3-point attempt rate is kind of right. It's above where it has been for his career. But again, he didn't shoot threes until he got to the Knicks. And it's kind of middle, like if it's kind of the median if you look at his last 7 seasons. So again, the shot profile isn't dramatically different. It's the playmaking, that's the decision making, and then secondarily the playmaking. Like, am I going to be a bull in a China shop right now? Am I going to bowl my way to the basket? Am I going to create for somebody else? Am I going to catch and shoot? Am I going to get to my spot in the mid-range and knock it down and maybe get an and one? The decision-making has been nearly perfect for Julius Randle this season, as evidenced by the career-low turnover rate. All of the above is very impressive. It's what the Wolves needed. It's what the Wolves have needed, with Ant missing 4 games, a couple of tough losses mixed in there. Some guys being banged up a little bit between Ant and then Jalen Clark and TJ Shannon. Like, Julius Randle's been a constant and he's been consistent. And a week and a half ago, I was on, or I guess about a week ago, a little over a week ago, before the Wolves played the Knicks last week, I went on a Knicks podcast and I talked about how if the season stopped right now, this would be the best season of Julius Randle's career. And we laughed about it. Well, guess what? We're a week later and you could still say the same thing because he's been great in the last week. All the obvious caveats apply about us being not even 15% of the way through the season. I think after Friday's game, we will be 15% of the way through the Wolves' regular season schedule. So yeah, things can dramatically change. That's absolutely true. But it doesn't change what we've seen so far to this point in the first calendar month of the season. Julius Randle's been phenomenal. He's been the best player on the Timberwolves. And the overall, he's doing it without dramatically changing how he plays, just making smarter decisions, being more decisive, taking advantage when he gets opportunities, and not trying to do too much, but filling in the gaps and doing all this other stuff too. If the new Julius Randle is and I don't know that he finishes the year averaging 25 a game, but if he's a 25, 6 and 6 or 25, 6 and 7, that's better than him being 24-10. Right? A well-rounded Julius Randle is better than the traditional power forward Julius Randle of 5, 6, 7 years ago. This is great to have him playmaking like this because remember, all this clamoring about Minnesota doesn't have a point guard, Minnesota doesn't have a point guard. What are they going to do? Julius Randle is the point forward right now. Like, he is the guy. He's number one in assist rate on this team. And that has worked really, really well to the tune of, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, a top 5 offense in the NBA. All right, I want to talk about Jaden McDaniels specifically next before we move on to the team stuff. All things Jaden next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our title sponsors at FanDuel. The NBA is back. We're almost a month into the season. There's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of any given game, or maybe you just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who's going to score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making a late push. We can look ahead to Thursday Night Football tomorrow night. The Patriots playing host to the Jets, somehow only 12.5-point favorites. I mean, come on. I don't know. Patriots minus 12.5. I don't mind that at all. Peek ahead to Sunday. Bears at Vikings. Vikings are a 3-point favorite at home. I don't know. Bears +3. I could see this being a really close game that could go either way. I don't mind taking the points if I'm just looking at FanDuel for this game. Bears +3. There's not a line yet on the Wolves game for Friday night, but they're going to be favored probably by, I'm going to guess right now that Minnesota at home against the Kings Friday night in a cup game is probably favored by, I'm going to call it 7.5 on Friday night. We'll see if I'm right. We'll check back in on this later in the week. I'm going to guess 7.5 will be the Wolves line on Friday. But again, if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to straight bet, you can live bet. You can do same-game parlays, all of the above at FanDuel. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is also brought to us by our friends at BILT. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you must, you might as well get something for it. And that's where BILT comes in. BILT is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards that you can actually use. When you pay rent through BILT, you can earn flexible points that can be redeemed toward hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. But BILT isn't just about rent. It's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood. That's right. With BILT, your rent finally works for you. You're earning points every month on something that you already have to pay. You got to pay rent anyway. You might as well earn stuff off of it, right? Maybe you're just grabbing food at your favorite local restaurant. You're heading to the gym. Whatever it is, you could still be earning rewards. BILT has made everyday life feel more rewarding, from your neighborhood to your travel plans and more. Turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbilt.com/LockedOnNBA. Listen to how it's spelled. It's JoinBilt, JoinBilt.com/LockedOnNBA. Make sure to use that link so they know that we sent you. Big thank you once again for making Locked On Wolves your first listen of the day. And of course, thank you once again for making us the #1 sports podcast network. Again, if you missed it off the top, Locked On is now the #1 sports podcast network, and we couldn't do it without you, the listener. A big thank you for being a loyal listener of the show. All right, let's talk Jaden McDaniels. If Julius Randle's been the Timberwolves' best player, Jaden McDaniels is probably the one, not probably, he is the one who it feels like everything he's doing is nearly entirely sustainable. Well, okay, we'll set aside the 3-point percentage, which we'll talk about. But for Julius Randle, Julius Randle isn't all of a sudden breaking through and becoming like a super duper star at age 30. What is he, 32, 31? At age 31. Like, there's a real possibility he's an all-star again, which, by the way, was one of my bold predictions before the season, was that Julius Randle would make the all-star team. Real chance he's an all-star. Obviously, if he's playing like he is now, he will be. There's an outside shot he makes an all-NBA team. But Julius Randle isn't all of a sudden becoming one of the 10 best players in the league at age 32, 31. He's just not. Now, Jaden McDaniels, Jaden's 25 years old. Just turned 25, by the way, like 6 weeks ago. The sky is I don't know that it's the limit, but like the ceiling for Jaden is up there still. And everything he's doing to this point feels sustainable, minus the like plus the over 50% from outside the arc. But besides that, the way he's playing, the way he's scoring, and I'll explain what I mean by that, feels like real progression, just like last season. And I spent a lot of time talking about this over the summer. But Jaden McDaniels from 2 years ago to last year made a lot of meaningful improvement. The shot selection was better. The weird little short mid-range leaner that he shot became like a real weapon, and it still is. The free throw rate improved. The rebounding improved a ton. And the offensive rebounding was a way for him to get cheap buckets, gain some confidence, help his team. But the rebounding was great. The assist rate, and I talked a minute ago about how Julius has the best assist rate, lowest turnover rate, second highest, or right in line, with where he's been in his career usage rate wise, all impressive. Remember last year with Jaden, it was his best assist rate, it was his lowest turnover rate, and his highest usage rate. Guess what? We're there again. He's besting last year's assist rate and last year's usage rate by far. The turnover rate's up slightly, but it would be right there, 0.1% off from the second lowest turnover rate of his career. And guess what? You can deal with slightly more turnovers when the assist rate also goes up and the usage rate goes up a lot, and he's shooting just the lights out from the field. So all that stuff was trending in the right direction last year, and it's continued to trend that way this year. There's still a couple of other things that have changed, and it's not just shooting 54% from three, although I'll tell you what, that does not help, or it does not hurt. It definitely helps. It does not hurt. I think it's notable to point out, related to the three-point percentage, that the volume of unassisted three-point attempts for Jaden has gone up quite a bit. And on the one hand, I can talk myself into that being encouraging because he does shoot the ball well off the dribble, and he really always has, other than like his rookie year when he would shoot those long contested twos, which are just never a good shot anyway. But he looks so comfortable with that like long crossover pull-up that he does from three, and also from his, short mid-range leaner that he shoots. That's just a comfortable motion for him. On the other hand, everybody shoots better on assisted, catch and shoot opportunities. So could there be some coming back to earth? Well, there's obviously going to be on the 54% from three, but the percentage of his overall field goals that are assisted, like that shift, I think is notable. The other thing is the corner three-point percentage. He's shooting 65% from the corners. Last year, he was 33.5%. Like, he's nearly twice as good from the corners as he was last season. And the year prior to last season, he was 36%. For his career, he's 38%, which includes this year. So it's pretty unlikely he's going to make almost 2/3 of his three-corner threes this season. But there could be, there's very likely some real improvement there across the board, from the pull-up shooting, off the dribble shooting, to the corner threes overall. Like, those things were trending in the right direction already, and they could be very real. The assist rate is very real, and we saw this last year. The decision-making is much crisper than what we saw through the first 4 years of his career, like hands down. And that plays into, that's what really kind of supports that assist percentage. And we talked about the free throw rate already too. I touched on it briefly. But for Jaden's free throw rate to be his career best, while he's also shooting a career best from three, is monstrous. It's so big. And he's done all this stuff. He's had wow moments in virtually every game. But it's not just the wow moments. It's not just the dunk. He had a nice baseline dunk the other night. It's not just the tough three. It's not just the wild, bank shot off the glass because he's so lanky and athletic. It's just impressive, the angles at which he can shoot and get the ball up on the rim and on the glass and make shots. It's the overall manner in which he's going about it. The steadiness is so important. And I know I said this with Julius too, but for Jaden McDaniels to come out every night and just be like, all right, here we go, punching the clock. Here's another, 16, 5, and 3 stocks. Like, that's consistency we've never seen from Jaden McDaniels. I mean, the peaks and valleys, and this is maybe another breakdown I can do another day, but if you go back at the last couple of seasons, especially, you look at the 20-point games, there's probably 10 of those a year, and then there's a bunch of single-digit games. That's not what we're seeing right now. This is the way Jaden McDaniels is going about his business is the ideal way to average what he's averaging. He doesn't have a single-digit scoring game yet this year. He's been double digits every single game, which is huge. He's been 20-plus 5 times in 11 games. That's huge. Contrast that to last year. Let's see. So he's got 5 20-plus point games, and all 11 of his games have been double figures. Last season, Jaden was in single digits 28 times and in double figures 54 times. He only scored 20-plus points 12 times last season. He's already scored 20-plus, what did I say, 5 times this year? So, like, he's halfway to his number, essentially, to his 20-plus games, 20-plus point games he had last year. That's incredible. And again, it's not like the pecking order actually changed. Like, if anything, there's less basketball to go around. And I know Ant being out for 4 games certainly contributed, and Jaden's stats last year and this year when Ant's out are more impressive. But Ant's been back the last couple of games, and Jaden's still very involved. And overall, I think the scoring numbers will come down a little because of Ant's presence. And you could say the same thing about Julius Randle. But that's actually kind of proves the point, is how talented both Julius Randle and Jaden McDaniels are, I should say, and how important they were when Ant was out, and how invaluable they are to the Wolves' success overall. And also, like, you need secondary scorers when you get to the playoffs, right? So all of the above is very impressive. Jaden McDaniels, to me, has showed the most sustainable, like, real, like, tangible, is this a real thing moving forward? That element is more real for Jaden than I think for anybody else. All right, I want to talk about the Timberwolves overall, the team profile, how that has changed compared to last season through the first 11 games of this season. We'll do that here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at Mint Mobile. If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No monthly bills, no contracts, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. You can say yes to making the switch. You'll get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Mint makes it simple. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can even bring your own phone and keep your same number and contacts. You'll get the same quality service that you had before, but for a fraction of the price. The setup is extremely easy. You just keep your number, and guess what? You're running in minutes. Are you ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 per month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. All right, the team's profile to this point in the season, 11 games through, or 11 games in, I should say. Well, actually, let's take a quick rewind. Last season, Minnesota finished the regular season 5th in net rating at cleaning the glass. They were 8th in offense and 6th in defense. Last season, Minnesota was one of 5 teams to finish in the top 10 on both sides of the floor. You could have guessed 3 of the other ones. OKC, obviously, they were top 5 in offense. They were number 1 in defense by far. Cleveland, who had the league's best offense, was 8th in defense. Boston, who was 4th in offense and 5th in defense. Believe it or not, Memphis was 4th in offense, 7th in defense, despite the fact they fired their coach in April, I think, late March. Crazy. And Minnesota was the 5th team that ended up in top 5 in both categories. Top 10 in both categories, according to Cleaning the Glass. The year before that, by the way, there were only 4 teams that did it. Boston and OKC did it as well that season, and then also Denver and the Knicks. This season, Minnesota is top 5 in offense, which was one of my bold predictions before the season, along with the one I mentioned earlier, Julius Randle making an all-star team, was Minnesota would finish the year with the top 5 offense. I did not expect the defense to be this bad, and I don't think it will be when it's all said and done. Sitting here right now, according to Cleaning the Glass, the Timberwolves defense is 18th in the NBA. The worst defense Chris Finch has had. This is his 5th full season or I should say season he started as the head coach. So throwing out the season that he showed up midseason after Ryan Saunders was fired. The worst defense he had was his first year, which I guess was his only non-Rudy year, where the team was 13th in defense. And that was the Pat Bev, Jared Vanderbilt defense. 13th in defense. Right now, they're 18th. The 3 Rudy defenses since that season were top 10. I think Minnesota gets to the 10 to 12 range when it's all said and done. And honestly, I've said this stat a billion times before. Rudy Gobert has only been part of one non-top 10 defense if you take out his rookie year when he barely played. Only once in his career has Rudy Gobert not been on a top 10 defense. So I will be surprised when the season's over if the Wolves are not a top 10 defense. Right now, though, based on how they're playing, the personnel, the we'll call it lack of urgency on the defensive end, and also the fact that they're apparently willing to play at a faster pace, which we'll talk a little bit about here in a minute. I don't know, 12th doesn't sound too bad. If you're going to be a top 5 offense, you can handle being 12th instead of 8th in defense, right? And still be I don't know, top 4 or 5 seed in the West. It'd be great if they were top 10 in both categories, and I still think they can do it. I go back to this, like 7 of the top 8 guys are the same. It hurts that Conley and Gobert are each a year older, but it hurts to not have Nickeil Alexander-Walker. So, like, I don't mean to trivialize. Like, this is where that loss matters the most is just one less point of attack defender, one less ball pressure guy in the perimeter, and Nickeil was this side of Jaden the best at it. So that certainly hurts. I don't think Nickeil alone takes you from 6th to 18th in defense. I don't think Nickeil is worth 4 points per 100 possessions himself defensively. But it's notable. And the way they're going about all of this, the biggest difference on defense, opponents aren't actually shooting that better against Minnesota. Minnesota's not turning teams over any less. It's strictly offensive rebounding and also fouling. Minnesota is 27th essentially in defensive rebound rate and opponent offensive rebound rate. There's only 3 teams worse. They're now middle of the pack in free throw rate, but they were really good each of the last 2 years when they were the best defense and then the 6th best defense. They were still top half of the league in free throw rate for opponents. Those things need to get cleaned up a little bit. If they can just figure themselves out on the glass, everything else is pretty on par with where they've been the last couple of years. Offensively, they're just shooting the ball really well, and they're not turning it over. Remember, that was the biggest bugaboo the last 2 years was turnovers. They were 2 years ago when they were middle of the pack offense, despite landing the 3rd seed and winning 56 regular season games. Remember, they were 16th in offense. And their biggest thing that they fixed last year was they started grabbing more offensive rebounds, and that drove additional offense. Right now, they're in between where they were each of the last 2 years, but the free throw rate has dipped a little bit. On the flip side, they're not turning it over with the same frequency. The actual rate is a little bit higher, but their league rank is better because in general turnovers have gone up this year, and small sample size theater, first 11 games, like we'll see what that looks like later. But overall, that's been better this year for Minnesota. So you turn it over less and, you shoot lights out, you're going to improve from 8th in offense to 4th in offense. Like, that formula is not that crazy. I mentioned pace. They are playing faster. They're still middle of the pack in pace, but that's a shock for a team that has been, has played really slow since acquiring Rudy Gobert. Minnesota was like 24th in pace last year. They're like 16th, 17th right now. So a lot to be seen there, like what changes, or a lot remains to be seen what changes there, or if that stays the same. But it's notable. The Wolves are playing faster. They're turning it over less. They're making more shots. They've got a billion guys shooting over 40% from 3, which I think is an exact number. Actually, I'll tell you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 guys shooting 40% or better from 3. One of them is Jalen Clark, so really low volume, and that's not, I don't think, sustainable, even though I know he did it last year. He won't shoot more than 40% from 3 this year, or greater than. Julius, great. Conley's at 50%, Ant's at 50%, and Jaden McDaniels is at 54% from 3. Not sustainable, no, but right now Minnesota's number 2 in the NBA in three-point percentage, and that is helping drive a lot of this offense. But there's more to it than that, right? It's the pace, it's the decent offensive rebounding, it's getting to the line at a decent clip. So I don't think it's going to come crashing down to earth. The three-point percentage, though, is something to keep an eye on, because if that crashes a bit, then it's going to be harder to sustain that top 5 offensive footing. So I don't think it's full on smoke and mirrors, but there is a little bit of noise there that we'll have to keep an eye on. Okay. That's all I got for you today. We'll dig in a couple more players tomorrow. I think we'll talk a little Rudy, and a bit about Anthony Edwards. I don't know that there's a whole lot yet to dig in on Ant, but what have we seen so far? And then we'll talk a little bit about the rotation, and then a little bit more perhaps about the pace thing, because I think that's one of the more fascinating elements of the entire season for Minnesota is the pace at which they play, and how is Chris Finch trying to adjust. Like, is this factoring for life after Rudy already? Is that where we're headed in terms of the pace stuff? I don't know. I have an inkling that there's something there. So we'll dig in on that a bit here over the next couple days. Friday, we'll get you ready for the Kings game Friday night as well. A big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. A reminder that for your second listen, you can check out the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Show with our guy, Josh Lloyd. He hosts the #1 fantasy basketball podcast that's out there, giving you daily tips and helping you win your league, all while making you a smarter NBA fan. Find Locked On Fantasy Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And of course, again, we are the #1 podcast network out there. So big thank you to our listeners for helping us get to that mark. A reminder that the Locked On Network is also your local experts on all the biggest stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.